Well, thanks for coming today. I'm really pleased and excited to get started to discuss the topic of the Holy Witness. So a lot of people that are in the healing arts industry or just compassionate, loving hearts, this is a topic that I feel like we kind of teeter on, like deciding where the balance is of like where to hold space for another person. And it can be really challenging, especially when you're first starting out. And just to let you guys know a little bit more about Callie from my own experience, I've worked with her as a coach for about a year, I guess, together. We worked about a year together. Mm-hmm. And the reason why I picked to work with her was because she was the first person that I met that like I could actually feel her like auric field, if that makes sense. So and I was in a place where I was really wanting to have more power of my own when it came to my energetics, and I knew I had to work with her. So I'm excited to have her introduced on the show today. I feel like she's helped me a lot on my path and has helped me stay grounded during my spiritual awakening, which can be really difficult whenever you're doing it completely alone. So I'm thrilled to have you here today.
Thank you. I feel so honored and privileged to be here. You are such a bright shining star, and getting to see your energy and what you create and what you do for others is so inspiring. So thank you for letting me be here.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Definitely have a lot of gratitude for you, just because like the huge transition that I went through during our time together, like going from being a corporate executive in construction to a full-time spiritual worker or a spiritual artist. I would more so consider myself these days. Yeah,
because you're definitely an artist.
Yeah, for sure. So today we're going to discuss the Holy Witness. I asked you to come today because I feel like that's definitely something that you just kind of embody when you walk into a room. My experience with your aura has been like this very, I know you're not a Virgo, but it makes me think of like Virgo energy, like in its healed state, if that makes sense. Like, so Virgo in the way of like, kind of like this fairy godmother type energy, but like in a way that's like how a loving mother should be, kind of like you have that presence with, at least you did with me as a client. And I think that that's why I really wanted you to discuss this topic, is because you are kind of like able to have that energetic presence of like a like divine mother type energy that holds space for her child. And like I feel like that's kind of what we do with clients a little bit. It's like, they're going through something that you've already walked through, and so you're able to hold space for them, but like also giving them the space to have their own growth like a mother should, right? So absolutely. I know that's maybe a weird description of you, but your energy for me was like experienced as like kind of like the mother energy that I never really received growing up. So that's what helped me like work through a lot of the divine feminine within myself. So that was really great. You were so welcome. Thank you. So tell us a little bit about how you got into this line of work with coaching, and can you describe yourself and like what you like to do specifically with clients? Like what's your ideal client? Who do you feel like you're able to serve the best? And what was your road that you took that led to that path?
Thank you for asking. So I'm Callie, founder of Willow Coaching, and I started my coaching business after over a decade in education and counseling. When I was going about it as a teenager, I jumped into a college not really knowing exactly what I wanted to do, but thinking I had my path laid out. And then I took my first psychology class and I said, whoa, nope, this is what I need to be doing. So I went on to get my BS in psychology from Duke. And then after college, I wasn't sure if I wanted to go into clinical psychology or education, and ended up doing education, got my master's from Vanderbilt. and entered into teaching. And along that path, worked with students, parents, teachers, was part of the counseling team, and really saw the impact somebody can make on helping someone through those internal struggles. That was kind of the point that I realized some of what I've been through can really help others. I've now made it to the other side, so to say, of some of these experiences that I kept finding were so common. And so instead of working with youths, I decided, let me start working with adults. Let me start working with people who really want to make these changes in their life but feel stuck. They keep coming up against the same obstacles. The same patterns keep reappearing, and they're finally ready to step out and step over it and find a different way. With my own work, I was in an abusive relationship. I had a score of sexual traumas and things like that just I had to work through and process, and going through different therapists, different coaches, different programs. From all of that, I learned that there are many different approaches, and you have to find what works for you. And I learned that there is a lot of misdirected energy out there, and people who want to be able to hold space for others and simply can't do it in a way that for me was helpful. And I'm so glad that they can help all the people who they have. I'm so glad that there is alignment out there for them. For me, though, I had to enter into more of a spiritual space, leave the Western medicine behind, go into a more holistic thinking process, and find people who are able to witness me in a different way. And through all of that work, through so much self-reflection, different programs and things, they led me through this internal journey, and that was really the change. And what I love to do for my clients is empower them through their own intrinsic motivation, through their own internal path, because you can shout at somebody all day to change and they're not going to do it. It has to come from within. Mm-hmm. And so that's really where I think my client base comes from, is these are people who are ready for a change. These are people who understand it's not, a magic switch of a button. It's not a flip of a switch. That's the phrasing. Mm-hmm. It's not a flip of a switch. And there are going to be ups and downs. Healing is not linear. How many times have we heard that? And that's where I feel like I'm so honored to work with people, to be able to be that person who, when healing is not linear, I'm still there. Mm-hmm. When your internal path is feeling chaotic, I can be that grounding external presence. And seeing the shifts that occur in people, helping them to recognize that when they have that little bit of a backslide, like, take a pause, look around, remember when you were all the way back there? Mm-hmm. It's okay that you've taken a backslide. This is part of it. What else needs to come up? Like, let's work through it. It's so rewarding in a way to see people have those aha moments, to see them start to lead themselves through their own questioning, to watch people shift their patterns and step into that life that they were dreaming of. Mm-hmm. I think it's a tremendous honor and responsibility that we do feel that we don't allow ourselves to go numb, because there are so many out there who can't feel that.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely have a superpower to bring that part out of people. Yeah, so it's a gift for sure, and I really appreciate your gift. Also, let's ask a little bit more questions. So, where did you grow up, and what was because since you are in spiritual work now, what was your spiritual upbringing like, and how is it different from what you practice today?
Yeah, so that's a bag of fun.
We'll start with where did you grow up?
Yeah. So I grew up in Oklahoma City.
Okay.
And lived here until I went to college, moved out to North Carolina for college, then moved down to Florida where I worked for Disney World. That was why I moved there. It was
oh my
great.
gosh, I didn't know that.
Oh my gosh, how's that not come up?
I
That's
did not know
hilarious.
that, but it's fitting.
Yeah. So I worked for Disney. I started teaching down in Florida, and then I got an administration job at a school here because my nieces and nephews were growing up, so then I moved back to Oklahoma City.
Mm-hmm.
And I was raised in a Christian household. We went to a congregational church. When I was 9, my great-grandmother passed, and so we kind of stopped going to church because that was our routine. We'd go and pick her up, take her to church. And so my spiritual life kind of went on hold, went on pause. And through high school, I had some friends who were like in FCA, fellow Christian athletes, fellowship of Christian athletes, things like that. And so I kind of touched on it, but it just didn't really resonate with me. I realized then I went to college and I, actually studied Judaism, went through conversion classes, didn't end up converting because again, it still didn't quite fit. Mm-hmm. Studied a few other major world religions, and realized I'm more of a pantheist. I believe in all religions and all gods and all beliefs because we are each shown our own personal truth. And whatever path you walk, that's the path you're meant to. And so while I don't worship all deities, I believe anything that someone believes is true for them. Mm-hmm. And I think that kind of touches on some of the Holy Witness stuff that we'll get into, on, being able to hold space for what is true for someone. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's a little bit of my spiritual life. But really a lot of my awakening happened, I'd say after the abusive relationship. I went on this path. I was having so many health issues. After it, I was in a toxic work environment and leaving this toxic relationship, leaving a toxic work environment. And my health was just shattered, went through all the Western medicine I could, and they couldn't give me an answer. They could say, yeah, we see that you have all of these issues, but we can't really just slap a label on you. And that was when I decided, let's look holistically. I started working with mentors and coaches, getting into different programs and healing sources. And that was really the true start of the path that I'm on now.
All right. How would you define the Holy Witness, and how is it different from simply being supportive or empathetic?
Yeah, so for me, the Holy Witness is different than just support. Support can take so many different forms too. If you just know a friend's having a bad day and you go grab their favorite drink and candy bar, that's support. Or if you see a chore needs to be done around the house, that's support. You could offer words of validation and say, oh my gosh, they did what to you? I'm gonna go, take them on, let's go. That's a way to support. The Holy Witness embodies a different field. The Holy Witness holds a different space and allows the person who's being supported to be seen in a different way. I love that you touched on that mother energy, because that is something to me that it kind of represents the God mother, the divine mother, the bigger than self. We're all reflections of each other, and when you enter into a Holy Witness space, what you're choosing to do is put those reflections aside, become so big that whatever that person is going through can be held. And that shift, that feeling that they get when they realize there's all the space in the world, their problem becomes so small because there's so much more space. And being able to be witnessed in that full energy of whatever they've gone through, of whatever that story is that they're telling themselves, helps to finally release it. Because even if somebody can never truly understand what they've been through, there's this sense of release that whatever they did go through, they're not alone. They're not all-encompassing. It's not the only thing that makes them them. It's allowed. It's what is. And that acceptance by another person changes the energy around what they've experienced. You know, the Holy Witness is not there to offer advice, to say what shoulda, coulda, woulda. The Holy Witness is there to witness, to be that kind of like grounded presence of whatever chaos occurred.
What's coming up for me now is that being part of being a Holy Witness is hearing someone's story, letting them tell it, and being believed by another person. So being in a neutral position where it's just like, I believe that was your experience, and not trying to decide what's true and what's not.
You touched on.
Yeah, for sure. So how do we lovingly hold space for someone and hold them accountable to their growth without shaming or abandoning them?
This is a wonderful question, because there's kind of that line of accountability and where to hold those borders, and when does that switch into, you know, being too harsh or critical or things. And I think a lot of that, one, as the person witnessing, you do need to know yourself well enough to check your own place and where you're coming from when somebody is sharing their story with you. And then the other side of it, though, is recognizing that as long as you're speaking with compassion and you aren't, you know, using some of those harsh terms or coming at them with a dagger-like energy, if you're soft and you're open and it's coming from a place of curiosity, then it can change that energy a little. So it's not shame, it's let's understand better. And then to also remember, as like the one who is witnessing another, whatever they feel in their experience is not your fault. And you didn't make them feel shame. You didn't make them feel abandoned. They are feeling that. And now as the witness, how do I hold space for that? How do I hold space for the shame that they're going through? How do I check in with them and keep a grounded neutrality while also holding the borders and saying, here are my loving arms. Here's my hug. Here's my embrace. You know, some people want to wiggle out of that. But how do you lovingly hold on so that it doesn't hurt? And I think that's a really nuanced question, and it kind of depends on the individual, but recognizing that whatever they do go through, if it is that shame, if that is that abandonment, making yourself big enough to hold space for those feelings.
That makes a lot of sense. So let's discuss a little bit, because a lot of times when people repeat their story over and over and over again, it can almost strengthen in a way and get to a point where that's like almost their entire identity.
Yes.
Why can repeated storytelling of pain sometimes reinforce the nervous system's attachment to suffering?
I love this question because of both the like energetic and physical kind of ways that this works. You know, I can get sciencey for a second.
Yeah,
one of my favorite phrases is neurons that fire together wire together. And so in our brain, you know, there are basically all these different pathways. And when you think of a memory, there's a certain pathway that lights up. And the more you think of that memory, the easier it is to light up. The dendrites more attached to the next axon, the neurotransmitters come more easily, all these things. So that it's almost like building a shortcut in. And the more that you repeat it, the stronger it gets. And this is where we're talking about repeating that story over and over. It becomes their identity, because that becomes such an easy accessed pathway and such a strong pathway. Like if you have the choice to go on a 4-lane highway or you have to trek it through the jungle, like which one's easier to walk? Like you can go down that cleared path, right?
Yeah,
and that's essentially what happens when people repeat that story over and over. This is why like affirmations can be so powerful, and repeating things daily and building those practices are so helpful, because it's helping to rewire that system. Additionally, like there's a lot of research that shows that the telling of those stories and the way that other people react can actually trigger different emotional responses in us that help strengthen that wiring as well. And so this is where having somebody not just be supportive and be that best friend who's going to egg you on, which is such an energy that's needed, like not dissing that at all, but having somebody who, when you've gone through something that's just too big, being able to be a grounded presence who can hold it helps change that, because you're not getting the same type of reinforcement. And it's allowing for these other pathways to kind of start opening back up. And when you're being asked questions and doing some of that internal work, it allows you to start finding new pathways and to start building those, so that it's easier to get off the highway and you can start finding some side roads and, you know, making your way through the jungle.
Yeah, for sure. One thing I'd like to, so through my own experience of like being a holy witness at like a super young age for a parent, not knowing those energetic boundaries, and I guess sometimes we're in need of a holy witness, and maybe the person that we're reaching out to for it is not the appropriate person. What kind of guidance would you suggest with maybe someone that doesn't have somebody in their family that's able to hold that kind of space for them, or it's not appropriate for them to hold space for them? How would you suggest that someone that's kind of already gone through a pattern and they're kind of stuck in that loop to start getting to a place where they're not holding so much shame, to where they can tell their story to someone that's a more appropriate fit, if that makes sense?
Yeah, so this is tough, especially when we're talking about like potential parent relations and things, and family. The first thing is, if you don't feel like you have someone to go to, search for them. And that might sound harsh, but you have to take that step inside first. You have to be willing to say, I need this help, let me find it. There are resources out there. They might not be the easiest to find. There might be other things that get in the way of you being able to have those resources, but for the most part, sourcing, recognizing that there might be external help is really a first key. Now, let's say you do have some people that you're trying to have them hold this space and they aren't the right person to do it. It again starts internally. You have to be able to recognize that, and recognize that, oh, when I talk to this person, I actually feel worse afterwards. And if you're starting to feel that way, then you can start having conversations. If this is somebody who's in your life, you know, maybe you try and have some conversations around that. Some people just need to hear, hey, I need to vent right now. I don't want a solution. I don't want whatever. And then that changes their stance, and they're like, okay, yeah, like say whatever you need to say. Sometimes you need to, you know, be like, hey, I actually need you to like hold me accountable and ask me questions, and you know, I want to hear your advice. And then you can see if they do that. And it's really a work of learning your needs, and learning how you want to and need to be witnessed. And it's trial and error. You know, finding more people who are maybe like-minded or who have gone through similar things, support groups, finding coaches who have something that draws you to them and who are able to hold that space.
Anyway, what does the Holy Witness require us internally before we can offer it to others?
Yeah, okay, so, you know, I love this because it breaks down if you're going to fill that role of the Holy Witness, like, what do you need to amp up? Like, what do you need to be able to do? And a big piece of holding space for others is your own resourcing, your own emotional and, you know, nervous system resilience and regulation. And so taking care of yourself is just the number one thing. Like, you have to take care of yourself. And if you notice that when you're meeting with clients or when you're holding space for people or things, you're feeling drained, you're feeling worse after, that's an invite for you to do more self-care, do some more internal love. Because holding space can be a very activating thing. When you're hearing stories from people, you know, they're deep. People aren't telling you about them going to the grocery store and they couldn't find the milk that they wanted. They're telling you these intense, heavy, emotionally loaded stories. And being able to be a rock and a grounded space for that energy is number one. If you want to be a holy witness, if you want to step into that role, you have to be able to stay grounded no matter what is thrown at you. And I can tell you, I have heard stories that I could not have fathomed in the most ridiculous fiction novels. And here it is, it's somebody's real life. And you can't have that kind of reaction. You're holding space for them. You know, you are accepting this as true, and whatever emotions might come up for you, however difficult it might be for you to hear that, you have to put that on the back burner. And it's not that you're ignoring it. It's not that you're bypassing it. You it's there. You feel it. You allow it, but you allow it to pass through you, because it's not your story. It's not you. You're just witnessing. And that's that like continual shift of energy that you kind of have to keep yourself in is, there's something, because usually clients that you work with have had a similar path to you, right? And so those triggers, if you haven't worked through them yourself, you're going to be continually triggered by trying to hold that space, which can be a blessing if there's some stuff that you need to work through. And being able to resource yourself in those moments is huge. Being able to recognize when you've messed up and acknowledge it and come back and say, hey, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you, let's do this over, is another big piece. And then I think the last one, just to try and make this concise, specifically for a holy witness, you're not there to give advice. You are not there to tell somebody what they should have done or tell them what to now do. You are there to observe and maybe offer internal reflection, questions, curiosity. For me, that's the huge difference of like maybe some different types of talk therapy or coaching programs. Like there's a regimen and there's a thing and there's a path, and you're being very specifically guided on this path. Whereas in a holy witness situation, at least what I try and do is have the answers come from the client. They know themselves best. I'm never going to be able to know you as well as you know yourself. And so being able to offer thoughtful questions that don't come from a place of judgment, that come from a place of open curiosity and love, that I think is the last really important piece of the holy witness.
Yeah, I love that. For sure. That was a great answer. All right. I think when I noticed that, because I know what you're talking about, how whenever if it's something, we usually are attracting people that have been through similar things to us, and if we're getting triggered through that experience, then we're not really holding space adequately, which eventually something will come up that triggers us. Like, we're not perfect. This is a lifelong journey, right? And like you're saying, just kind of acknowledging it, like, and being able to not hold yourself in shame when something like that does happen. And then also I feel like that's good for the client too, if you're able to acknowledge that you acted inappropriately, because then it also gives them an example of like what a healthy relationship is supposed to be like.
Because when we mess up, we're humans.
Yeah,
we are living a human experience.
Right. And just being able to witness someone even like having an like appropriate response when they make a mistake is like a huge thing. Also, I think one thing I would like to add is like, I think the first time I noticed that I was like actually capable of holding space and like I wasn't still living in my own triggers is whenever I was like reading, client reviews that said, this thing happened and this is how I felt, and like I didn't actually move through that experience, so I know that I was like holding a space for them to have their own mirror, if that makes sense. So I was like, oh great, like, because I definitely, like, there was nothing, the things that they were describing, I didn't do anything to create that experience for them, so I knew that I was holding a space for them to create that experience for themselves, which is the goal. It's not for us to, I think that we're, kind of conditioned to want to hold the pain of others to like truly have compassion, and that's just really not how that works, because in a way we are disempowering a person from having their own connection with source in that instance. So being able to be in an energetic space where you're just kind of there. And I think when I first started doing it as a practitioner, it felt very like cruel in a way, like, because that was what I was conditioned to think, is like, if I'm not experiencing this person's pain, then how am I actually being empathetic?
Right.
And that is not actually what's helpful. So I had to go through this like process of knowing that like me holding my own energy and letting them have their own is actually the kindest, most compassionate thing that I can do, because it empowers them to have connection with source. And once they have that established, they don't need me anymore. So it's like, you know what I mean? Being able to get them to a place where they're able to tap into that directly and not have to depend on another person for their happiness. Because that's not how we want to live our lives.
Exactly. My favorite thing to do is coach people out of being clients.
Yeah.
Like that to me is the whole point.
Yeah.
Like, help you get through that moment, learn how to resource within yourself, and of course I'm always here for you. Like, but you have everything within you. Like, people have everything within them. So yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
That you touched on that.
For sure. Let's see. If someone is listening and wants to step into being a sacred witness in their relationships, either their personal relationships or with clients, where should they begin?
First thing is just by listening. Like, if you notice that people are already kind of telling you things, and it might just be like your best friend and you guys are kind of talking about your week. If you want to start stepping into this holy witness space, in those moments, just recognize it. That to me is the first thing, is recognize when you could step into those spaces. Some people don't want that space held for them. And so there's also the side of checking in if somebody wants that and how they want you to hold space for them, right? Do they want you to be this witness who's big and safe and open, or do they need their best friend who's gonna be in their corner no matter what, and we're gonna go bang down that person's door like, and demand an answer, like, right? They might need that. So it's checking in with somebody and making sure that they want that holy witness energy too. There are, different programs and different coaching styles and things that are out there that you can go and learn. I love helping people learn how to hold that space and do that. I know, there are just so many different paths, and like, you offer so much for people with learning about themselves and the ways that maybe they could fill that role through their astrology and things like that, which I love your work. It's so there are tons of different paths, and it's whatever calls to them specifically. And my thing is always research. Whatever research means to you, but research. And if that is watching a bunch of TikTok videos, great. If that's going and finding a bunch of, peer-reviewed journal articles, great. Like, whatever your path is, but research, learn, and understand that you get to take what works and leave what doesn't. And if you try out the Holy Witness space and you're just like, nope, not for me, you know what, I actually don't like also holding people accountable, I just want to sit back and listen, like that's great too. People need that space too. So whatever path you end up on, like, thank you for doing the work. Thank you for being willing to hold space for others. And that's really where it starts, is just the recognition that this is a place where I could hold space, checking in that people want that space held, and doing your research to help yourself hold it better.
Right. We're all going to have our own little flavor and spice that we add to this work.
Yes.
So, and that's why there's so many different people that do it, because not every client is going to need the same thing. And also clients might work with multiple different people at different states of their growth. There's going to be different, and then that's like another thing too, is like, I think as practitioners, we might, get into this place where it might be taken personally, or if like a client wants to work, which I've never experienced that with you, but I've noticed that sometimes that happens, and no shame, because I get it. It's like, oh, did I do something wrong? It's like, no, it's just, there's like, sometimes this is where it goes, sometimes this is where it's gotta go. Absolutely. And it's kind of that spiral thing that you're talking about. Maybe you're just one part of that spiral, and they might even come back around, and it's just kind of, you never know, and it'll be at a different place, like the next time they come around, right?
Exactly. And like you said, since we each have our own kind of flavor, like sometimes they need multiple people at once to offer these different perspectives. Like, if you're trying on a new outfit, like just looking at one mirror versus having like a 360 mirror, well, like you get a totally different view, right? It's similar to that. At least for me, that's really more the way that I try and embrace it. And if what I'm doing isn't working for a client, I'm always open to feedback, but also like, yes, please go and seek what you need. Like, that's how I can help you better, is if you are also getting the support that you need in this area that maybe I can't offer, like, great, like, let's tag team, like, we're a team here, let's do it all together. It takes a village, right? So absolutely. Let's build our village.